I want to say thank you, hello, and welcome to the session Youth in Revolt. Obviously a really attractive title. Making docs in the post-YouTube world. I'm chairing the session, and I just want to give a little bit of context in that I think we've sort of come to a world where we have the mainstream broadcasters, in that we have scheduled television, and that's a decreasing world, which we talk about in a moment. And we also have the very vibrant world in YouTube, where it's self-generated material, user-generated docs, and it seems that the two worlds are slightly polar, and they're not talking to each other. I think that this session, if we can do anything, is to try and bridge that gap between scheduled TV, documentary making, the well-trodden paths to the traditional broadcaster doors, and that world of documentary making on the internet. I think the two worlds have probably got more in common than they've realised, and it's time that we moved closer together and started a dialogue and moved some of the money over. But that will be one of my points to come to later. My name's Liz Warner. I would just like to reassure you that I'm not going to be repeating my BAFTA speech where people walked out in horror as I talked about the death of television. I'm feeling in a more optimistic mood. TV is not dead, and content is very much alive. Traditional TV might be on decline, but it is not dead. So we're in more spirited, optimistic feeling than we were last year in every sense of the word, I think. The world has moved on a lot, even in the last year. So I worked at Channel 4 as a commissioning editor. I then ran a production company making a lot of documentaries as well as popular factual. And last year I made the BAFTA lecture about youth being left behind, which is why I think I've been booked for today to repeat that message because it is true. I'd like to introduce the other members on the panel. So I think I'm definitely here to represent the granny vote, because I am obviously representing traditional TV world, and so I'm the granny on the panel. Hannah runs a digital production company called Angel Sharp, based in Oxford, making many internet documentaries and short-form content. Tom Shennan has worked for Diagonal View, is a documentary maker, filmmaker, and has run channels on the internet. Is that, I've got you right?
Roughly right, yeah.
And Jade, you are an independent filmmaker who lives in Madrid, makes internet documentary films, but makes films often with an artistic, they're not pure documentaries, sometimes they're arts docs, and has made films for the ICA, the Tate, and runs her own company, encouraging more use of iPhone documentary making. Is that right? So I welcome everybody here today. We will talk a bit about our own particular views, and I really welcome questions from the floor, because I think that it's something that the industry needs to start debating. Even if not in this room, I would really think that we would like to get the message out there, particularly to some of the traditional broadcasters. So I'll set the scene from where I see it in Grannyland, in that I've grown up in traditional TV. I've loved it. I've had an absolutely ball of a time. I've had a brilliant career. I've really enjoyed making films. And I was drawn to TV, and in particular to making dynamic, sort of risk-taking films. So I came from a documentary background. I grew up, in fact, I trained here in Sheffield as a journalist, so it's lovely to come back here and see how it's completely transformed, and that you can drink things other than cider. You can actually get flat white and deep-fried poached eggs and things like that. It's brilliant to be back here. My filmmaking career, I suppose, the pinnacle of that was probably when I was Channel 4 commissioning editor, and then running a production company, where you are able to develop and make the films that you can either commission the films to your own taste and that you really want to do. And I particularly loved working at Channel 4, where I felt very connected to the brand. It was countercultural. It was there to challenge form, challenge conventional thinking, and to bring new talent into the major broadcast world. I then went on, having worked there, and there I commissioned many documentaries. I commissioned a series called Teen Kicks, I work with lots of documentary makers from Sue Bourne to Dave Nath, across the board, making different documentaries and factual dramas. And then I also made Grand Designs, River Cottage, and Big Brother for My Sins. So I don't quite apologise for that to a certain extent, because the original Big Brother, for me, summed up what Channel 4 was about, which was actually challenging form, taking risks and innovating. What's happened to it since is probably a little bit of a emblematic story for what's happened to TV, really, in that it was probably the original it was online. It went live. So it's amazing how backward TV's gone from that moment. Because if you think that Big Brother, when it launched, it went live on the internet, and it was a streamed programme, simultaneously streamed, and people were ringing me up saying, we can see what's happening. And I'm going, I know, I'm here. So it was quite dynamic of its time. And it's a shame that TV hasn't gone and run with that. I suppose what it did do was then introduce the rig to documentary world. And from that sort of fixed rig came 24 Hours in A&E, Educating, and all those other rig shows that have taken documentary into a more constructed role on TV. So my Channel 4 world, and I also was able to challenge form with doing drama, factual drama, using really interesting form. Or I did a documentary that called Break Up with the Joneses, where we gave 2 small cameras in the day where small cameras seemed like novel. And we followed a divorcing couple, giving one director to the man and one director to the woman, and of the couple. In that we thought there's one story, 2 truths, and the two directors never spoke, and the material only came together in the edit. And the ambition of it was to tell the children's side of the story, because you'd always got a bias on either side. So those sort of things were really interesting in terms of challenging form, the way things were made. They were the highlights, they were the brilliant times. And then I went on to work at Betty, where I took much of that thinking, and we were able to make programmes, more factual dramas, where we did Pissed on the Job, which won awards for changing form and using factual drama to tell stories of people pissed in their daily lives. And we went on then to make The Undateables, which came out of a cutting edge. So I would like to celebrate documentary in its greatest form. It has definitely been given me some of the highlights of my career. I loved it when there was Modern Times and Cutting Edge, and I rue the day that those strands disappeared. So all I want to say is that it was in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years of TV, I have seen that risk ebb away. And I became more disenchanted to a certain extent with what TV was becoming. And I use TV as in the main broadcasters, as they became risk-averse, wanting ratings over risk. They wanted comfort over creativity. They wanted to see things that had been done before. They wanted stories to be told that had been told before. They wanted you to use techniques that had been used before. And that sort of becomes, it's atrophying, and it makes the life of a creative a duller one. And it became more about meeting the prescription of the commissioning editors rather than challenging the preconceptions. And I sort of think slightly we now have the mainstream TV that we deserve, because we've slightly lost that edge, that risk-taking innovation, and the youth has left TV. And it's not surprising, because I don't think that TV is giving young people that connection. It isn't giving people the type of programming. It's all being mediated through a very few people who are dictating or prescribing what they want. So I think that's, in one world, is a bit depressing, but I think that what I want to talk about today is about what can be done, because I think that actually it all is not lost. These are very, very valuable brands. They're very trusted brands. Channel 4 are places where we still want our films to be shown and to be made, but they need to open the doors, take the risks, and start to spend the money elsewhere other than with the tried and trusted and 10 production companies that they always know and like to work with. So I would just look at the whole of the filmmaking industry that is on the internet and start to say, let's work together, let's start to, make things happen together. And my message would be, let's stop talking about TV companies, let's start talking about content, and let's be platform agnostic and start to make things that people want to watch, and then let's find the platform where it's suitable. So I really, really think that there is, some tips to be taken going forward, and mine would be hire more young people. If you are a production company, stop saying you're a TV production company. Don't always tread the well-trodden paths to the usual suspects. I think already this has changed in a year. People are looking to Netflix and Amazon, but it'd be really nice if Channel 4 and BBC were offering more opportunities to young filmmakers outside of the traditional methods of getting in. There needs to be more doors open, more ways of getting in, and more money spent, because there is an absolute thirst by the audience for documentary. I mean, I think never, ever, ever before I think it's probably at its greatest, there's greatest appetite by the young audience to watch it. So please stop hanging on to your old advertising money. Please stop advertising, incontinence pants and, and making programmes with Angela Rippon, and move. I'm not saying that there is a valid audience there, so I'm not saying ignore the older audience, but I think that the younger audience is being ignored at their peril, and it seems to be slightly reflected in the political world. So I have some tips. I have, basically hire younger people, get more involved, shift your money, change your tech. So I think the thing is that broadcasters still think about TV being, pressing TX and it goes out. It's sort of bizarre. And I sort of think that we need to start thinking more, tech has actually transformed the way that content is delivered. So iPlayer really is leading the way for, Channel 4 could be following really, if, all four delivered in the same way. So I would say we need innovation in tech. We need more young people to be listened to and more films to be taken on board. And we just need everybody to start to think content is king and not thinking in terms of there's TV, there's the internet, let's get together and tell great stories. So that's my sort of summary as of my fast, rapid run-through. I'd now like to pass over to Tom, you're next.
Thank you.
So as I go from old, I'm throwing the ball over to young. Tell me, Tom, what's it like in your world?
Yeah, I'll give the sort of YouTube-y world perspective. I'm Tom. I run a YouTube channel that's educational called Y Complex. So I talk about basically whatever I'm interested in on that. The science behind parallel worlds, difference between legal and medical insanity, the history of trousers, anything I find interesting, it's very nice. I used to work for Diagonal View, which was maybe the largest production company making original content for YouTube outside of the US. It's just recently been acquired by Sky in the past couple of months, so it's now their in-house YouTube production facility. We made I wrote and produced on like a dozen of channels they had there. There was children's shows with a puppet. There was listicle things. All Time Tens was like a big YouTube channel they run with like 4 million subscribers. They have a football channel as well, Football Daily, which has a lot of views. But basically, my aspect is I just love YouTube, and I want more people to watch YouTube, and I think YouTube is really great. And this is a difficult challenge to convey because the mainstream media, traditional media takes a few particular narratives when it comes to talking about YouTube, and one is, it's all makeup tutorials and Minecraft games, and there is a lot of that and big audiences for that, but it's also a place where everyone can find their niche, and those niche audiences aren't small even. So I've put together a little reel of, I watch a lot of stuff, but I've focused on the stuff that I watch daily, which is more sort of educational, factual, documentary in tone. So I've got a little VT you might want to watch. So there is, you can see a large range of stuff happening, animation, more documentary focused, vlogging, science, just straight up, interviews that have then been animated afterwards. And I think if you look at the range of in the production quality that's going on there, you can see in the majority of cases, it's a very small team making these things, like often just like one person. And I think that, and then maybe 2 people or 3 people, it doesn't generally go too much bigger than that. You don't need that many people to make them. And I think this is the main thing that the first thing that anyone will say about YouTube. It's an open platform, and therefore it's democratized. Anyone can get up and go and just make something that goes on there. I'm going to get into how true that is in a moment. But that is certainly the reason that I thought, I'll make some videos and put them up. So that's what I've done. The other thing about watching these videos and knowing that, you can see it's made by one person is my favorite thing about YouTube, which is the audience knows this too. The audience knows that there's one person producing, writing, filming, coming up with the ideas, editing it, even promoting it, responding to the comments underneath the video. And that gives an authenticity that can't really be found, or is very difficult to come by in other places. And I think if you compare it to if you're doing educational content or a story on TV, if you were to have like a presenter-led documentary, I look at that and I still feel that the presenter's there to bring me into the world for me to empathise with, to see it through their eyes. But I'm still aware that there's a team of researchers behind them, there's a director behind the camera, there's different people editing it, all these different things, and you don't have that sort of personal connection that can make you really enthusiastic about a topic if you're trying to get people engaged. Of course, there is a downside to that. If you're a one-person team and you're making factual or educational content, you don't have a team of writers, fact-checkers, and that sort of thing behind you. I could talk about this a bit later, maybe, but my main response would be, I think it's fine because you have the audience there, and it is a dialogue and a community on YouTube, and you don't want to be. There is a balance to strike between being scared about misinforming people, but then saying nothing and not engendering any curiosity. But you have an audience there to hold you to account, and if you do slip up, you can have a discussion about it in the comments. And I think saying something is, as long as you're setting out with the right intentions, is probably the best thing to do. Finally, the thing that comes from having small teams is, the commercial viability of the project. You don't have to worry about money as much if there isn't reams and reams of people behind the whole thing. But me personally, I just make these videos in my spare time, so commercial viability is a zero concern for me. I don't care. I do care, but it's not necessary to care. That's what I'm saying. I think the things that are at the forefront of my mind while I'm making videos, is the audience going to find this engaging? I want them to be interested in the thing that I'm interested in. But I think the very most important thing is that the process of filmmaking itself is fun. And my partner helps me out with making these videos, and we both have a laugh doing it. And I don't think there'd be much point in making them without. And I think this is a point that gets skirted over sometimes. The process itself should be really, really fun, and that's why I think you could be doing it. That said, the other narrative that media likes to take on YouTube is, look at all these vacuous people making loads of money for doing nothing. And there are loads of YouTube millionaires. It's not a secret. And like we said earlier, it's democratized apparently, so it should be very easy for everyone to become equally successful on the platform. And the platform has grown, so let's have a look at that. In 2010, on YouTube, there were 5 channels that had 1 million subscribers. And 2 years later, in 2012, that had gone up to 68 channels with 1 million subscribers. Last year, in 2016, there were over 2,000 channels with 1 million subscribers, which is just a huge rocketing up. But then, if you look at how those channels are sort of distributed, hundreds of them are actually managed by Google themselves or Universal Music or Sony Music, through Vivo and things like this. And if you look at a particular example, Stephen Colbert's channel, launched maybe about 18 months ago. He went from 0 subscribers to 1 million in less than 10 months. And so there are factors at play, particularly since about 2012, where money traditional media has been making more of an impact and headway. And the key lesson from this is it's much easier to, if you've got an idea that you think maybe YouTube is the platform to host that idea, you're going to be more successful if you've got an audience that you can drive from elsewhere to it, whether that's an audience for like Rihanna or Stephen Colbert. Also, interestingly, people who were on YouTube when it was much more of a Wild West pre-2012, I guess, they have also been able to build large audiences and sort of carve out spaces for launching new projects. And then at the other end of the market, you have lots of people looking at all the YouTube on the surface value and seeing how great it is. And so there's actually a saturation at the low end of the market of like thousands of people making, if you want to make a gaming video, there's thousands of people at the low level. There's only a few at the top. And then aside from all that, the very key determinant of YouTube, which you probably heard everyone talk about, is the algorithm. Everyone loves the algorithm. And this is, I think, one of the key ways that I would say YouTube is changing, if you're looking like what YouTube was and what it's going towards. And it changes all the time, but there are big tweaks that everyone sort of picks up on and notices every 6 months or so, I guess. But basically, the algorithm is if you're on YouTube and you're trying to look for a video, you might search for it, but predominantly the highest proportion for a lot of videos where their viewership comes from is recommended videos. In the sidebar on the homepage of YouTube, if you like this, you might like this, autoplay. And YouTube uses the algorithm. The algorithm is basically the name we give to how YouTube decides what goes in those spaces. And YouTube's aim is to get people on the platform watching videos for longer. And so that's all the algorithm blindly does. It tries to increase this watch time. And so how do you do that? So you might think about how you reverse engineer that, and if you've got a great documentary idea or anything that you want to get on YouTube and to be successful, you should pay attention to how the algorithm works, because that's where your audience will come from if you're not bringing them from outside the platform. So quality content goes without saying. Everything needs to be quality, but there are thousands of really good people making quality content with very small audiences on YouTube. Then the other things are the videos need to be longer. So 10 minutes is good, 20 minutes is great, an hour is amazing. And this might seem surprising because, if you look at video on Facebook, you're used to seeing like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes seems a bit long on Facebook, but YouTube is really geared towards much longer videos now. And this is a shift that happened in the last 2 years or so. And then finally, frequent uploads. You want to be uploading not once a week, but daily if you can. Because you've got an engaged audience then. They know if you upload at 5 p.m. every day, they're going to keep coming back. You can build a community around the channel much easier. If you take all those things together, quality content, long 10-minute videos every day, this isn't a system that then favors one-person production houses. It favors more traditional media companies coming in with their teams of people and their researchers and stuff. And Diagonal View, where I worked for, had this sort of model where there was a great number of people working on any particular channel or video, and that's why it continually evolved. It used to make, on its biggest channel 3 years ago, it used to make 2-minute videos. Now it makes 10-minute videos on those channels. So this is a thing to pay attention to. So what can you do if you have an idea? My first suggestion would be to do what everyone successful on YouTube does and conform to the algorithm and do what it asks of you. And so if you've got an idea, can you think of a way to reformat that? If you've got a subject you're interested in exploring, why not every day make a 10-minute video about that, about your sort of investigative process in interrogating that subject, bring the audience along with you, make use of the authenticity, become a character in it yourself. That way, if you were to change subjects, say you want to do a year about Palestine, then you want to do a year about Russia, your audience will come with you because they care about you. If you look at Casey Neistat, who was in The Reel as well, he has sort of proved if you have filmmaking skills, it is possible to make 10 minutes of quality content every day. The video I showed there was him doing a more sort of documentary, newsy piece, sort of talking to people about Trump's inauguration. So that would be my suggestion, with one big caveat, is that the algorithm can change overnight, and you only find out when your viewership drops and your money drops, and then you don't exist anymore. This has happened many times. And so the only solution I can say to that is if you crack the algorithm and you're successful on YouTube, you should be also diversifying on several other platforms and paying attention to what's happening on the horizon. I'll just give one example of that. YouTube have launched YouTube Red, not in the UK yet, but in several countries around the world. And they have got one of their first documentary feature commissions came out a couple of months ago called Kedi, which is a film about cats in Istanbul. So internet cats, they went for the right target. And so this doesn't fit the algorithm right, a feature-length documentary. That's just one thing, you put it on YouTube, it's done. It's not regular, frequent uploading. How are you going to build a community around that? They went for direct the audience from elsewhere, so they got sort of video game style, one of the big YouTubers to present it, introduce the video, and post it on their channel. And that's, so you have to constantly be looking ahead to different ways things are happening. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All right, well done, Tom. That was a rapid tour through YouTube production. And therefore, and also I see as a traditional broadcaster, some things are resonating that would have been in traditional broadcasters, which is like suddenly you have your expert introducing your film. It brings your audience with you.
Exactly.
So things start to resonate. Just before, I should have shown the graph, so I'm going to just show you the graph that I should have shown before I introduced Hannah. So can I just, we have got a couple of graphs to just show how youth has actually started to leave TV. So this is a viewership, this result came out only last year. And you can see there from the pie chart that 4 to 9-year-olds barely feature. And you can see that the 29% is 55 to 64, and 65 plus is there. And so basically the audience is predominantly over 35. The other graph that I'd like to show is more dramatic. So that shows people leaving. I think this is actually quite a dramatic graph for traditional broadcasters. And that's maybe why, Sky are buying a multi-channel network like Diagonal View, because there needs to be a shift in thinking. It's quite dramatic. So you look at the black line, that's 35 plus, saying pretty consistent. It's going down, but it's going down slowly, probably as people are falling, literally dying. So, sorry to say it, but let's cut to the chase. Look at that. For me, look at the pink line. 16 to 24, which has been one of the traditional audiences I've always made programmes for. They've left the building. It's quite incredible. And 4 to 15, likewise. Anybody with young children in the room knows that it's not the TV that's on in people's homes. It's devices, isn't it, where people find and seek the content that they want. And it's not all mascara tutorials. So I just wanted to contextualise that before moving on to Hannah, who, if I'm granny of the panel, I'm going to now put Hannah as, mother of the panel, and obviously Tom and Jade are the kids. So Hannah, help us bridge traditional media into, and tell us how you get it paid for in your production company.
Okay, cool. So one of these wonderful words that we've been using a lot is the democratisation of content generation. And I think when we think of that, we actually think of people like Tom, and we think of vloggers. And one of the things that we forget about, or don't like to think about, maybe at Sheffield, where we're all filmmakers, is that democratisation includes brands, and that now brands can make loads of content in a way they couldn't before. So before they could just make adverts, and now they can make content, including factual and documentary. I don't necessarily think that brands are this wonderful, great place for new content. I want to make that really clear. But what I'm about to say might come across as that, and that's just one angle I'm going for here. But the key thing I'm exploring is that not all brands are baddies, basically, and so not all branded content has to be Red Bull content, basically. And so the brands that I want to talk about are academic institutions. So that's universities, galleries, libraries, museums. Again, I'm guessing most people in this room wouldn't think of that when you think of branded content or kind of where new content is coming from. And these brands are doing really great stuff and reaching a youth audience, the audience, the pink and blue lines that are falling off the graph. I run Angel Shot Media, which is a small, what Liz would call a digital indie, what I would call a sort of production house. And we make films for a variety of institutions, a little bit of broadcast, a little bit of stuff for NGOs, but predominantly half of our work is for Oxford University, because we're based in Oxford. And so we do a whole range of stuff for Oxford University. On one end of the scale, that might be promotional content. And then at the other end of the scale, that's documentary, factual, web series, and stuff that kind of ties into the research, as well as stuff for the university's museums, galleries, and institutions within. So I'd just like to show a little VT that kind of shows what branded content can sometimes look like. Cool, okay, so in that VT you saw a variety of different things. There was some stuff on cancer research, that was the lady talking about hope. You saw the stuff about Raphael, that was for the University Museum. Some of you Harry Potter fans will have noticed the Bodleian Library, which is kind of the second most important library after the British Library, I guess, in the UK, has all the books ever published in English. And then a particular interesting example is Whiteham Woods, which was the academic talking about how she's a wallaholic and the guy who wanted to lick ladybirds. And so I thought it would be interesting for you guys to hear that model of commission. Basically, Whiteham Woods is one part of the university, and that's a really important point to make, is that I think people think of these institutions as, oh, Oxford University creates content or commissions content. Actually, there's not really such thing as Oxford University. There's loads of different departments, loads of colleges, loads of institutions, loads of academics, all with their own pots of money, and they are all different clients. And then, of course, there's the central departments that run the central YouTube, but they're actually curators a lot of the time of the content coming in from all different parts of the university. So that's something that's interesting to note. So Whiteham Woods is this woodland outside of Oxford that has about 50 different research groups, all researching all types of different things. And I think 1,000 research papers have been published on badgers and blue tits and climate science and art and history. And they just give us a pot of money every year. And they're like, just make what you want. Just make three short videos every year, please. And that's been 4 years. So we've got a series of 12 short videos now. And as far as their motivation, all they really care about is just raising the profile of Whiteham Woods, proving that interesting science goes on there, and just reaching people. They just want the content to be interesting. And sometimes we've had Spring Watch or Country File contact us for some clips, or sometimes they've come down and kind of recreated some of the stuff we've done with their own crew and their own presenters. And either way, that's a win for Whiteham Woods. If they're getting onto Spring Watch or Country File, or if they're getting mentioned in news articles because of these videos they're creating, that's all part of their plan. So I think there's this idea, oh, branded content is trying to sell you something. Well, actually, here's an example where a brand's content is just trying to make interesting content for you and kind of raise their profile. And it's a kind of self-preservation thing. They want to show that, you know, their research is really valid and really has an impact on all of our lives. And as far as editorial input, they don't really have any, because they're like, you know, you guys are the filmmakers, you make what's interesting, and we send them a rough cut, and they're like, yeah, fine, great, publish it. So that's kind of maybe a misconception about branded content as well. And so as far as kind of why universities like Oxford University want to make this content, so in a sense, it's actually, this sounds quite grand, it's kind of part of their bigger purpose. Oxford University academic, if they were in the room, might say, you know, our purpose is to further human understanding and you know, increase human knowledge in a very open, honest, transparent way. So that doesn't necessarily disconnect with filmmakers and documentary makers who care about transparency and a lack of bias. And generally our academic clients really get that when we talk about having a balanced piece of content. And they want that transparency to be there. More so than commissioners, in my opinion. And also as part of their funding, so obviously academics and the university get a lot of funding from big research institutions, which are largely funded by the government or foundations, and they often fund academics saying, you have to do this research, find out what you find, but you also have to tell the public about it. We're only going to give you this money if you tell the public about it as well and you don't stay in your ivory tower. So it's actually part of their job to communicate their research to the public, and that's where we come in and help them do that.
Time's nearly up, Hannah.
I'm only halfway through, sorry.
You have to stop. I'm sorry, you have to go to Q&A.
Okay, so misconceptions about this type of content. Misconceptions, you get told what to say by brands. That's not necessarily the case, and I think there's a bit of a switch between actually you get told more to do what you say by commissioners, and in our job we're more advising the academics and the clients in what they should be saying, and there's this much more kind of mentoring role, which is really interesting. Second of all, misconceptions, it's low quality. I mean, look, there's a lot of low quality stuff that Oxford University and other universities do put out, but there is also a lot of high quality content. And a big misconception is that there's a product you're being sold. There isn't necessarily always a product that you're being sold.
Yeah, wrap up.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say in conclusion?
No, that's it, that's fine.
How not to be left? Do you want to say how not to be left behind?
How not to be left behind, my top tips.
Please give your top tips.
Ensuring and proving authenticity, inherently where possible, i.e. be authentic in the style as well as the content, because your audience smells bias a mile off. Encourage on behind the scenes of the institution as well, so showing that behind the scenes helps with the authenticity, showing that process. And focus on the contributor's relationship to the story or their research as much as the story or their research as well. Their personal relationship with it, which is the same in traditional TV as well, that personal journey helps the audience relate to it. And be clear on the brander's role editorially, and be open as possible in as many different ways to the viewer as to what their role was in that content.
Thank you. So that's branded, or the not probably traditional view of branded content, if you were thinking that branded content is all Red Bull production. But also what we have to think, and bearing in mind that coming from traditional TV, brands have paid for Channel 4's content for many, many years, only it's all paid more directly into the advertising pool, and then allows curation without any influence. So let's move on. So Jade, tell us about your world.
Why the youth are revolting.
Why are the youth revolting?
Hi. Do I need to speak with this? No, I think
No,
I'm
I
okay.
think it works.
So my name's Jade Jackman, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've kind of made films in a variety of ways. I think one of the examples of kind of using new media is I directed something for Vice recently, and obviously Vice is a now very popular, although sometimes contentious channel for young people. They've got Viceland. Their videos actually don't do as well on YouTube now. They actually do better on Facebook. That's where people will first see the content. And I guess why we're seeing potentially some young people going to new platforms to get news or watch documentaries is because I think with television, sometimes it feels like the content isn't necessarily what they might be the most interested in. I'm going to kind of potentially back this up with some statistics. For example, the IndieWire published a report from 2014 to 15, and there was 3% of minority women directors that were making stuff for TV or TV documentaries, and then 89% of first-time directors for TV were men, and I think some of the reason that perhaps young people of colour, or young women are going to sort of different platforms is because sometimes we don't see ourselves and the things that we're interested in represented in television, and I think that is something that has caused a rise of people going to YouTube. But then on sort of that note, what I wanted to say is this is fiction TV. So Cecile Amike with Aki and Saltfish might be a good example. She made this and put it out on YouTube, and that was looking a lot at the black women's experience, because that's something that you never see in television, especially told in a genuine way to our experiences as women or women of colour, the characters can be quite narrow. But then actually that went on to go and get picked up by HBO. So I guess kind of what my line of argument is for young people is not that we don't want to be part of like the mainstream or the established media. It's that we don't necessarily think that our stories would be the things that get picked up there. So therefore we are turning to things like the internet, cheap cameras, platforms like Vice, because they are, I guess they're listening to us, but then when we progress and we develop something, actually we do want to go to HBO. We do want to go and have our films eventually on somewhere like Channel 4. So it's not that we don't want them to exist or we don't like them. So that's kind of not the case at all. And I think one thing as well, when I think about why I enjoy making kind of more experimental stuff or making something that's on the internet at the moment, is because like I am young and I don't know exactly the kind of films that I want to make yet. And I can also understand why when people are younger, maybe why they wouldn't be going towards television, because the budgets are a lot bigger and the responsibilities and needing to understand your sense of your own voice is a lot more. So I think the internet is a really kind of exciting place to start making very like visual, a little bit more experimental and risky stuff. And I think one thing that I have noticed a shift, and speaking to my sister's friends who now thinks like I'm very, very old because she's 7 years younger than me, and she's like, oh, Jade, like no one even goes on YouTube anymore. Like everyone's just watching Instagram videos, so you need to tell everyone that instead. And I was like, okay. And like I was like reading today that like Snapchat is like everyone is viewing content on there now, like brands are being very clever at picking up. Like ASOS has just commissioned like a bunch of like filmmakers from ASOS to make Snapchat videos, like kind of making like follow behind the scenes of like Bella Hadid and like, you know, these sort of like documentary branded stuff. But they're like even going beyond everyone else. Like they're literally going straight to Instagram video and Snapchat. But I think the shift that I've noticed is that because YouTubers and people are getting more well-versed in digital media, everything's getting cheaper. I think sometimes people are expecting to see like higher quality or a higher aesthetic that sometimes television doesn't have. It can be kind of a bit more, like even the kind of cameras that people might use or the look at it, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of a different aesthetic. But that's the kind of exciting thing that something like Random Acts that Channel 4 does is like a pretty exciting thing, because people still want to make something that's a bit more like experimental for television. And then we have a clip of a documentary, like one of my documentaries that I have made, that I will get them to play for a minute, and then I can just like talk a bit about like why I think the internet and like self-publishing online is like good for this kind of stuff. So that was, sorry, like a really short, brutally cut off clip. Sorry, it's about Yarlswood immigration removal centres. So basically where the UK government puts female refugees before like deporting them. And I guess the comparison that I wanted to make about this is that Channel 4 made a very good documentary about Yarlswood that was like quite a conventional, like undercover film that was like exposing some of the human rights abuses that were going on there. However, like when we're coming to talking about people who watch our stuff, like I had a lot of emails. Sorry guys. After that went out online from young people who were 17 saying that they'd watched it and they'd seen like a clip of it that had gone out on Instagram, and they'd kind of engaged with it through Instagram and then gone and watched the video. And whilst I don't think necessarily like that's the only way of getting people in issues, because then they went onto Google and they watched the Channel 4 documentary, I think it's quite exciting because ultimately like our aim is essentially the same. If we're making documentaries, like we want people to see the content, we want to like engage the youth, or we don't want them to be apathetic in the same way that we want to engage old people, but so that they don't vote for Brexit. And that's, you know, we kind of should be thinking about like, as the media, as a collective, like how can we engage lots of different people in the issues, and what sort of like strategies should we be like going down to do that? Because people do still want to, like, I think that there is a sort of trust with like the BBC documentaries and Channel 4's like longer form documentaries that I actually don't think like will die out. Like I hope that when I'm older that I'm going on to make something that will be like broadcast on the BBC and the television. So I don't think it's like we don't want that. I think the internet and YouTube and things like Random Acts and Channel 4, like they kind of give a stepping stone for people when they're like learning what they want to do a bit more.
I'm going to stop you because that's a perfect solution. Thank you for passing that. That was passing the buck right back. Because I think that's true in that I think that people have sort of probably tended to talk in polarised ways about the two worlds, and that's what I was saying about this session being about bridging those two worlds. And I think that your example where, you know, a YouTube film can actually drive people to a Channel 4 audience is really interesting, and that actually it's where people need to start to connect the two groups of people, and the two skill bases need to come together more, so that people are working with a joint initiative on different platforms.
Yeah.
I'm just going to draw a little parallel about where I'm working now. So I'm now running Comic Relief, where I have the exact same challenge in that I have a night of TV, which is in older people's world, which is a conventional telethon based on sort of an audience of average age 47. And that's obviously a nice, generous, donating audience that we want to nurture, care and love and look after, and improve the quality of the content and the comedy going forwards. But at the other end of the scale, I'm there I'm seeking now to diversify the content so that Comic Relief doesn't stay just as a one night. We want to nurture that and keep that. So as I'm saying, we really value the brand, and we value the BBC's role in that, and in raising awareness of certain issues. But what I need to do is diversify the content, and I'm looking to now start to have other content platforms so that it reaches different audiences. So you've got different platforms for different audiences. The blunt tool, I think, of one size fits all has moved on, and we now need to diversify to get our stories told on different platforms to different audiences. So I wonder if we want to ask questions. I mean, I've certainly got a question because I want to ask Tom a question. So shall I just ask the first question to get everyone going? Tom, I want to ask you about curation, because I sort of think that is the answer going forward curation?
Curation of what?
Of content on the, so
how to find stuff. It's helping to find, so knowing where to find stuff that you might like.
Well, I think as I outlined, there's a lot of problems with how people find content on YouTube at the moment, and I would love it if there was a way that, because the algorithm's like this black box that decides you will only like things that are long, and maybe I don't want to watch like a 10-minute long video, maybe I like 4 minutes long, but you won't get recommended that. And so if there was a platform, or I can see there definitely being room for success of something which, everything is all about machine learning and neural networks, and you like this, so you like this. And I think those things is probably where it's going to go. It's just the problem when you've got a company sitting on top of that, like Google, that has another motive that they're putting into the mix. It's not, their only concern isn't just what you will like, it's also what will keep you there for longer, which aren't quite the same sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, so their motivations aren't strictly...
Yeah, and they're directly influencing what is being served to you. And
that you're getting your own echo chamber, so you're not getting different opinions, and we're getting a society that's not hearing maybe contributes.
Yeah, and currently there's no easy way to opt out of that. If you're on the platform watching, then it's just being served to you. There's no way to be like, oh, well, I would actually like to hear from both sides of the political spectrum on this particular issue. You have to go and search it out, which is tedious.
Has anyone got any questions about... Oh, yes.
Yeah, question for Tom.
Oh, hello.
I just wondered how much your content has changed since you started with obviously not much of an audience, and you've built it to 7 million that you currently have. How conscious are you of the audience, and how much has that changed what you're doing?
So I think just to clarify, I was working for Diagonal View, which is a big company, and I was working there for a while on a number of their as one of many people on the team making videos for these already established channels when I came into the company. Okay, and so now I make my own YouTube channel, which is very, very small at the moment.
not 7 million.
I'm looking into the future for you.
Well, yes, thank you. Thanks for the confidence.
Oh, and so it's, the microphone's just passed. I'll come back to you in a minute. Yes, it's
for Tom, can you just explain why you think that longer YouTube videos are now becoming more popular, and also how do you earn money? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I'll take the money one first, because if you want to have a sustainable business, or if you're thinking, you know, I want to make entertainment content or documentary or anything, this is the main problem with Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. There's no way to monetize it unless you're bringing brands in, which maybe doesn't have to be such a bad thing. But YouTube is the only place that has integrated payment system for, you know, you put the video up, you get money back per views. There's currently a very complicated controversy going on with like advertisers pulling out, and it's all dreadful, but it'll probably pass over. And on the longer video point, so like I said, so YouTube wants to increase the amount of time people spend on the platform, and what it measures this with a thing called watch time. And watch time is basically the amount of time you spend watching videos. And so if they're serving someone a 30-minute video and they only watch, you know, 5 minutes of it, and you'd think, oh, that's terrible, they've only watched such a small percentage of the video. But if they're serving people 4-minute videos, there's never the potential for them to even get to that 5-minute slot because it's longer than the actual length of the video. So that's the rationale for serving people longer and longer videos. And the main people this benefits is the gaming community on YouTube, because you can just set up your Xbox, leave it recording, and then narrate as you play for an hour and a half and just post that online.
So the answer is, then Tom, I didn't quite understand how you make money.
Well, YouTube serves adverts on everything.
Yes, I know, yeah.
You get a cut of that.
You're getting your cut of that.
Yeah, you get a cut of that. I think, you know, it varies depending on your audience and what advertisers like about that. It's generally £1 for 1,000 views or something like that. But it's, like I said, in the past few months, it's recently dived because there's controversy of serving adverts alongside like jihadist material and stuff like this.
And lots of brands pulled out.
Yeah, exactly. Johnson & Johnson and someone else.
Waitrose.
Yes.
Interestingly, educational YouTube channels don't actually have any adverts. So some of the kind of barriers, maybe especially when you get the pre-rolls, and people are really put off by the pre-rolls rather than the banners. Anybody watching stuff on, you know, Oxford University or Wellcome Trust or these educational channels, YouTube has a special agreement with them that they don't have any adverts on them, so there's less of a barrier for the viewer to actually watch that content. But then subsequently, obviously those brands aren't earning any money, but then they don't need to. So.
Yeah.
Can we ask any other questions?
There's
a man at the back there.
Sorry, Tom.
Sorry, then Tom to Tom.
Sorry, Tom. I'm going to ask about that YouTube controversy. Yeah, as you said, it's mainly focused around controversial videos, and even though, yes, the extremist videos its main focus, it's affected a lot of YouTube channels which, you know, like, say, controversial. How will that affect kind of documentaries on YouTube that are covering...
Yeah, so this is the main thing. So YouTube went basically into panic mode, and it can flag videos, demonetize them, or, you know, put them into this particular category it has, which schools sign up for, which means they don't get shown in schools. And so if you want to, particularly if you're making educational content, it's difficult. And the sort of things it flagged in the immediate aftermath of the news story breaking, it was flagging anything to do with people talking about LGBT in a positive light, or it was talking about basically if you were doing a news show on YouTube, any political coverage, if you were talking about war, you know, anything even informational, if it was just even related to something that could possibly be deemed slightly controversial, it was just flagged. And I can see why YouTube did this, because it made sense from their point of view to be super careful straight away. And then there was an immediate pushback from the creator community, because they were basically, their livelihoods were sort of wrecked overnight as a result. And what's happened in the past few months is it's, as you'd expect, they're slowly sort of trying to recognise context a bit more. And just because you've got, you know, a video about Islam doesn't mean, you know, what the right-wing press might, I don't know. You know, it's better now, it's getting better.
Right, can we answer any more questions? I would really like some questions about, anybody would like to be talking about the evolution of from YouTube to iPlayer to through to, it's interesting, I think particularly, Jade, you talking that your longer term ambition is to be on a traditional broadcaster. I want to just, before we go to the question, why?
Well, because I think it's still got, people are still getting views, and I think like my aim as a documentary maker, especially because I make stuff that's like more socially orientated, which is why I ended up making this certain film for Vice, was because I wanted people to see it, people who didn't necessarily like agree with me, because I guess if you are making kind of more like experimental art house documentaries, like it feels like the people who might go and find that might not necessarily know about it, but they're probably going to be more like left-leaning or liberal, whereas I wanted the sort of trolls, kind of certain collectors of Vice to like hear me talking about like women in an immigration centre, because people need to know about it. And I think that's another thing about like television. Lots of people have televisions, and lots of people will watch things online and like engage with, I mean on the television, and like engage with like new stories they wouldn't hear about otherwise.
I'm going to ask you one other question, which is, why do you think television doesn't reflect people's lives? People like you say you don't see yourselves on TV.
How much of an honest answer do you want?
I want an honest answer.
Because I think for a very long time, like the media industry, and it still is when you look at like who owns like even bits of Vice and like right-wing newspapers, or like the advertising, or where actually money comes from, has been owned by like a certain type of person. And I think it's like two things, is that when people come with like TV show ideas or documentary ideas to traditional places, if they don't have like a diverse commissioning system, I don't think people get it, and I don't think people understand the importance of certain types of stories. And they say, especially to a British TV audience, like, why would people be interested in that? Or this doesn't necessarily seem believable. I've had like similar conversations with this. Or another thing is that sometimes when you go in, and some of the language that commissioners might use talking about certain subjects will turn off people, and they'll walk out of these like established places and say, actually, I don't want to make a film for you guys.
That's honest. That's honest. Yeah, it's true. Probably. That's why we're saying is that I won't go any deeper into that whole.
But that's why you're seeing a lot of young people going to places like Vice, because they feel kind of like, actually I can make something that maybe isn't like perfect to everything, but I'm being allowed to like make stuff that I actually want.
And maybe it doesn't have the you've got the risk without the responsibility you were talking about. Earlier, everyone's talking about risk without responsibility, and it seems that traditional TV isn't allowing the risk or the representation of documentary filmmakers in their early days. So it seems that the first-time filmmakers... But
random acts, like, that's still one thing, and I think that's,
it's one thing.
Yeah, but I think it's a really great, like, initiative that, like, I think Channel 4's done a great job, like, having these little short, more experimental films from a, like, diverse range of filmmakers, like, established people, and...
How much do you think they invest in that compared to how much they invest in major programming, which is 900 million a year?
I mean, like, obviously, I think it's not necessarily enough, but as the only platform that I can see doing something like that, and also running it with the ICA, like actually teaching first-time filmmakers to make films that will go on television. Like, I'm not going to like hit them too hard.
No. It's a great initiative, and we'd like to see more of it. Yeah. Can I just take your question?
Actually, I did want to just get a viewpoint from everybody about discoverability, which is the fun word for finding content. An awful lot of YouTubers are out there, as you say, putting stuff out there. How does anybody find anybody? Same thing with Instagram. It's all about who you follow, and then people that follow you, and Snapchat. And I can see from Tom's point of view, obviously views will get you money. I don't think everybody wants to continue broadcasting. Their ambition is to go to a more traditional platform of some sort or another. Can you talk about discoverability? How do people find you? How do people find you? How did, obviously Oxford University, whatever, they put it on their website. Great. Can we talk about that a little bit more? Especially since YouTube is worldwide, and also the idea of discovery. I mean, a lot of the people you found and that you follow are actually American. There is that question of like, we're only getting like American content or British content, and caveat, I actually live in Canada, so if you can talk about that.
Yeah, a lot of American content. Interestingly, some of those American people actually live in London. I think maybe the American accent does help them, you know, and I think even when we're working at Diagonal View, which is a London-based thing, 300 million people living in USA, isn't there? So it's just a huge more share of your audience, so you end up gearing everything towards an American audience, which I think is a huge problem on the internet at the moment, particularly if you're a UK-based person who's wanted to make things about UK stories, because there is immediately just a much smaller audience and then much less money. And
the IP, you know, the UK has built its creative industry based on its IP in the traditional media model and held on to its IP, which has allowed it to grow and build. And now, you know, once you go to Netflix or Amazon, all IP's gone. You get funding for your film, they'll put your money down, they'll fund you, but they'll take all your intellectual property. So it is something, you know, that I personally think, you know, where's the British platform that allows the IP, that funds filmmakers, and this is an impassioned plea, that where is, you know, the tech that will deliver us the next iPlayer or Google or whatever, which will deliver us British IP and fund British filmmakers that we can then own and distribute all over the world, but owning our content.
Sorry, I also wanted to like answer your question in a slightly different way. Like in 2014, with some friends and I, we started this like mobile phone filmmaking competition, and we've like totally run it like through the internet by and large. It's called I Want Change, like very original. And in our first year of submissions, we had a film from Zanzibar that some kids in a film school wanted to make a film on their phone about how they were being taught the English language, but they were all failing their exams because their teachers couldn't speak English properly, but everyone had to be taught in English. And like they found us through like Twitter, and it was just crazy. And so like we've had so many submissions from around the world, and then like connected those stories with traditional places like the Tate and the ICA. And I think that's what I've found really exciting, is that like obviously like it still is quite niche, but it's being able to like use the internet to discover new stuff and then like link it with like established places like the BFI or the Tate or here.
So it's really a case of if you build it, they will come, and that's what you're basically saying here in both of these cases.
I think, well, I don't know. I guess like I think people now are like quite like quite tech savvy, so people do find stuff. But then obviously like there's a wider problem about like what kind of people are like kind of similarly getting platform, because the way like global media works. But that's like such a different question. I'm not going to get into it.
So
or you use name. Sorry, go on, Hannah. You go.
No, I think it's from a slightly different angle, which might depress you or not, I don't know, is paying for the distribution. And one of our clients is the Francis Crick Institute, a big biomedical research institute, that big building behind King's Cross. And again, you know, that their purpose is to get out their research and show these case studies about how they're, you know, working with cancer and DNA. And they will literally make their video, it costs a couple of grand, and then pay for, on Facebook, that to appear on anyone's feed who lists, you know, that they work at certain scientific institutes or that they follow Nature magazine or Science magazine on Facebook, so that they're targeting very carefully their audience as to who might find this interesting and who it might be really relevant to. Now that, in a way, is a good thing, because obviously you're getting your content out to the people who probably do want to see it, but it's all from the brand that has the money to do that. And so part of their production budget is making the film, and part of it is paying for the distribution. And it's seeding. It's like you pay a certain amount to get people to see it, and then they'll start sharing it, and then the hits come from them sharing it. So you just got to seed it a bit.
And possibly put seeding in the budget, so that's what we're talking about going forward, is that you don't just have the budget for making it, but you have the budget for getting it seen in the right places.
And then I suppose also like thinking again how my sister consumes stuff and like her friends is like, I guess a trend that's like happening now is like celebrities, like the Kendall Jenner Pepsi advert thing, like which sometimes goes wrong, but people are trying to like get people that have like a very large following on like Instagram to like represent their kind of branded docs or whatever, so people buy into it.
I'll just give one example of where we've done that, particularly at Comic Relief. So while we have the traditional 6.8 million whatever on BBC One, we also did a Rapman video. So Rapman went to visit one of the domestic violence projects that we do and worked with the victims of domestic violence, gender-based violence, and wrote a rap based around that, and we made a video, and that got 25 million. So we got 25 million people engaging with one of the projects in a very different, dynamic and unusual way for Comic Relief, and 8.5 million watching, you know, Warwick Davis and Annie Henry and the traditional Comic Relief audience on the other end of the scale. So it's as I say, it's your audiences going to your different platforms, and it's being as platform specific to and targeted for your audience as possible.
Where did you post that Rapman video?
Well, we posted it on the Comic Relief website, which is not going to get you very far. That'll get you to, anyway, I won't know the figures because they will be going up, hopefully, and then through his channels. So, of course, his followers, and then it went viral. So you just can't, you know, it lit and went, didn't it? So I think we should round up. Has anyone got any final questions? I would just like to say, let's round up, and good luck to the future of content.